Keep it coming, guys. I love all of the positive vibes that we've been getting in the past few days. It's been wonderful, man. I've just been checking my messages and comments and Instagram. It's great. It's really good. It's really, really good to see so many people feeling very motivated and feeling very much like, you know, they got stuff to do now. They want to move forward. And this is all this has ever kind of needed to be is it's potentially a tool to help folks essentially, be driven to push themselves further. And I'm glad to be a part of that in any capacity, truly. With that said, let's talk about today's topic. Oh, one thing before I do that. Please leave some comments and suggestions of any other stuff. I got a couple that people brought up to me just recently. One was like about portfolios and stuff. So I'm like, oh yeah, I could do something about portfolios. Let's do it. And another one was just kind of about overall the process and what have you of becoming a good artist. That's kind of attached to the portfolio one. But I shall keep moving. I actually have quite a laundry list of ideas that are of my own, making. I don't have any um, empty well of ideas, but I would love to kind of create like a large backlog as long as humanly possible. So that way I can kind of continuously make fascinating and helpful pieces of feedback for y'all. With that being said, what is today's topic? Well, I am going to talk about what it means to make art in general. To me, I treat art like a science. Like art to me is like just a science project. And I think for a lot of folks, this is kind of bizarre, right? And it's because like we look at art and creativity as something that is, you know, of like the human soul and spirit. And I think that's great. I think that's a really good premise to kind of wrap your mind around. But you have to remember a lot of the stuff that we as a species have done, we've just kind of defined it on our own, you know? These are self-imposed definitions on many of these ideas. Meaning that like when we think about art and the definition of art, it's just a definition to describe what we think something that is created by a human that can make people feel a certain way about it once they see it. We call that art, you know? And I don't have anything wrong with that. I think using words and terms to help define the world we observe around us is an incredible tool to help you stay focused and move in a direction. Um, and as much, I've kind of recategorized art as a science. And what I mean by this is that I treat art like a science, just like a scientist would treat discovering the cosmos as a field of science, right? Usually astrophysics and the like, right? And, chemists and microbiologists and all of these incredible people who are trying to discover more and more about the universe. I think that's great and it's really fascinating. And I wonder if there's a way to think about art in the same way where we're trying to understand the science of human, creativity and human imagination and human understanding of how we see the world and interpret it and what we love about it and what we don't. And that is usually captured within art. But again, I think because art is rightfully something that we feel, we kind of treat it more emotionally. But again, all these words and terms are just self-defined. I don't see why we can't re-elaborate and redefine them for our own purposes. So if you start to think of art like a science, then you start to understand how I look at it, right? So for instance, I rarely fall into what is called an art block. I think when I was a young artist, perhaps there was moments where I would, like, as defined an art block I would have. But the reason why I don't really have an art block in the conventional way is because I just think of it as, oh, I don't know enough of this thing, so I must go discover more information about this thing. It's really that simple, you know? What I'm not saying is that it's easy, that, oh yeah, like I can't draw this thing well, or I have no ideas in my mind to, or I know what to draw. Um, I'm not saying that part of it is invalid. Like, it is very challenging to relearn or to learn new things. Like, this is just facts. It is very hard to acquire new knowledge. I'm just saying it's simple. There's nothing about it that's like I'm like confused where I should go. I might be confused on how to understand like a mechanical engineered vehicle that I've never designed before, like something like a jet engine. Like, I don't know how jet engines work, right? And that's not going to be an easy task to wrap my mind around. But what I can do is begin to understand how jet engine works. You know, just like a scientist might not understand what is in the center of a black hole, or what black holes are like and how they feel as you reach the center, but they have some ideas and they can look at stuff around it and try to send potential experiments near and to, you know, and they can do hypotheticals. They can create, you know, simulations, and they may never know truly what is a black hole. We may never know as a species, or care to know at some point, but the ways to begin to know, there are plenty of ways to begin to know. And for me, that's how I approach it. Like, I may never know as an artist truly how a jet engine works at like the scale as like a mechanical engineer, because that's just not my job to really know at that level. I may never need to know in depth these large like metallic pieces that are made. I just don't know where they come from or how they're built at like a meaningful application, meaning like if I was to actually build it myself. But having some understanding, having some ability allows me to maneuver around what I know. Just like we may never know how black holes and all this stuff, and might never know how something like gravity truly works in the grand scheme of things, right? It's the theory of gravity we have. We don't have the law. But we can use what we know about gravity, what we know about black holes, what we know about the things that we do know, even if it's still limited information, and create rockets and satellites and GPS. Just like my limited knowledge of understanding a jet engine at its complexity, main complexity, I could still like make a cool looking mech or robot, or even design like some sort of fantasy character that has some inklings of the mechanics of a jet engine. You see where I'm going with this? And if you think about what scientists do to try to like understand things, they do a lot of really powerful stuff, which is they research, they study aggressively, they come up with hypothesis, like what they think is going on, and then they test it aggressively. And those tests tend to reveal whether they were on the mark or off the mark. It will tell them more or less what they are doing right, you know? And then they pivot. They create a new hypothesis. They create a new series of ideas. They create a new sense of understanding with the new knowledge that they've acquired. They look at all the other sciences and all the other scientists and all the other studies, and they kind of cross-reference. Again, good science, right? And I do the same with art. I research and study quite a lot of art. I look at great art. I look at bad art. I look at all the stuff. And then I come up with hypotheses, like of what I think makes good art. I come up with theories and perspectives of what I believe is making interesting imagery. I come up with, meta-analysis based off of what my peers are doing and what I see does well on my own platforms, you know? Because I will never know everything, but I can always acquire more and more information that could allow me to understand a little bit more than I already know. And those little dips of knowledge tend to help drive me in the right direction to become better as an artist. And I think when people look at it this way, and whenever I do my mentorships and give advice in this manner, like try to decouple the merits of it feeling emotional, like, hey, don't take it personal, you know? Then my students start to break free. They start to evolve themselves into better versions of themselves because they're starting to not look at art as some kind of personal validation of their abilities, but rather a skill and a science to be learned, you know? And one thing that I think is really important to understand from this is that, our emotions and our feelings. Calling me? Hold on. Maybe message them. I think it's my wife. I'm letting her know I'm recording. I usually let her know. But unless it's an emergency, I might have to stop this early. Where was I? Oh yeah. I treat art as a science and like a skill. So that way, whenever you running in, when you're a student and you're running into these feelings of like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not like this, it's simple why you're not good enough, right? Like you would never have the same premise, let's say, with like astrophysics. Like you wouldn't say to yourself, I am not a great astrophysicist after just studying it for like a day. You would be like, oh, I'm not good because I haven't studied the math, I haven't studied physics, I haven't done enough education, I haven't put the time to become an incredible physicist. It's like, yeah, well, that's the same thing with art. And I think the problem with something like art is because we put a lot of emotional attachment, and then we also don't look at it as something that is a skill that can be acquired. Sometimes we think of it as you have a God-given gift. I know the most people feel this way, and I actually have a video idea where I'm going to talk a little bit about this. But what ends up happening as well is that it's not like one for one. Like you can't just see your improvement. It's a lot like fitness, but even fitness has its markers. For instance, like you might not see your body change day by day, but over a long period of time, you will see it change. You know what I mean? And because of that, and actually because it's hard to really see the media changes day by day, it's really hard to know you're growing. And same thing with art. But hold on, I have ideas. I'm just realizing game being art, because I don't want to forget. I had like another one too. Actually, I just thought about. Shoot, it was like on my mind as I was talking that I wanted to reflect on. Oh yeah. Art bias. That was the other one that I had on my mind. As I'm talking about, I'm like, ooh, that's a good topic. I should talk about that later. Oh, and one more. Talent. Genetics. Ooh, that's gonna be a spicy one, right? I don't need a. Okay. Sorry. Again, this is like off the cuff, just raw Anthony Jones, again, for the sustainability aspect. I am not trying to give myself more work after this. I have too much work as it is. If I could sit down for 20 minutes here and there, do a painting, awesome. You know, like uh, the most I'll ever spend in a day is about an hour or so. But if I could do 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, this should be OP. This should be all I need to do. Um, but yeah, like I said, like if you treat your craft like a craft, you got to spend some time. You got to spend some time with it, man. And I think that a lot of folks, again, I think a lot of folks have the wrong perspective. Oh, I had it right in my mind. I had another idea. Dude, I have like just gushing with video ideas. Yeah, but if you spend enough time crafting your skills, then you will become really skilled, man. It just is inevitable, man. I'm telling you guys. But anyway, why did I paint this painting the way that I painted it? Well, I know that this type of painting and this type of art has done really well for me in the past. And I don't do it often, not because I don't like it. I actually love this aesthetic very much. It's just because, I'm always trying to grow. I'm trying to get better as an artist. And sometimes it just requires me to do stuff that's not good. Like I did a whole video just recently that did really well. Like lots of people really like it. Um, where I said, just do bad art, And I have lots of bad art. Got so much of it. I remember when I first started out, I had like a sketchbook where I would just draw all the time, and it was not good. There was tons and tons of shitty pieces of artwork in there. And I remember showing my sketchbook to somebody because they're like doing a sketchbook share-a-thon. Everyone's sharing their sketchbooks, and we were all just like kind of like looking at how awesome people's work were in their sketchbooks. And then it comes to me, and then I show mine, and I can just see people's reactions were just like, oh, I guess AJ is not very good at art, only like digital, because this is like really bad. Like that was kind of my impression. They might have not thought that at all, but I can just tell there was, oh, okay, and then it moved on. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty accurate assessment of what you just saw. But in my mind at the time, I wasn't like even remotely insecure about it or frustrated about it because one, I was actually really accomplished at that point. I was already doing really well. And then the other reason is that this is my sketchbook with emphasis sketch, meaning that like I am driven on trying to be really, really, really good at my craft, and part of that just requires me to draw shitty. I just got to do it. Like it's just part of the deal, And I think that confidence in myself and understanding what my agenda is with my portfolio at the time allowed me to not get discouraged by any kind of bad feedback, And it's not like it's impossible for me to still get offended or defensive about what I have created and somebody gives me some negative feedback on it. Like that still happens, truly. But I'm just more practiced. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's really interesting that like I was showing my sketchbook and it was just like it got like a very negative reaction. Or let me rephrase that. It got like a pretty indifferent reaction. It wasn't truly negative, but it wasn't also positive. And that's, again, as a reminder to y'all, I treat it like a science. I have to do the research. I have to do the math, the simulations, to see what works and what doesn't work. And I just consistently and constantly do this. And I'm like working on my own projects, and every time I put something out, I always just keep an eye out on what I see people are reacting to and what they're not reacting to. And it allows me to know kind of which direction I probably should move towards, or give me more certainty about the current direction I'm going towards that I need to improve greatly, because I'm not getting the reaction I'm aiming for. And that matters to me if if I have a goal, you know? And so, yeah, the more you guys understand that, the better you'll become. And like I said, I'm doing this piece of artwork knowing that this will get a really positive reaction. Again, showing you guys my theory and my hypothesis on the matter, that this type of stuff does well because it shows femininity, which is really popular. Seeing, beautifully drawn women and feminine figures tends to do really well online. And then on top of that, it's like abstract. It's like unclear what the hell this is. And that increases mystery and intrigue. And then well executed, like being able to paint it effectively, gives it a lot of allure, and gives it a bit of like respect, because it's like, oh, this person has mastered some sort of craftsmanship in their ability to create this imagery. And all of those things combined makes a compelling image, at least within my own style, right? There's a couple things I know that do well. But if you go to my Instagram and you'll like just see kind of the breadth of work, you'll see just a fucking a man of an artist. But I am only getting better. I'm only getting faster. I'm only improving every single time I do this. And if I ever want to come back to this aesthetic that I'm known for, it's not like it's evacuated from me. Like, I could still do it, and I just choose not to. And there's a big difference there. And when I do client work, it's almost always the kind of stuff that I'm known for. A lot of it is this type of stuff that people expect of me, and I do a pretty good job. I keep employed because of it. And so I always encourage people to adventure and try stuff, but keep in mind that you gotta draw a lot, And one thing I'll add to this kind of idea of treating like science, like right now I'm making YouTube content, right? I'm trying to be consistent, and so far I've been doing all right. Just this morning I was looking at the numbers. I was like, okay, let's see how it's going. And yesterday was a big day. I got about, I think it was like 10,000 views in total, which is huge for my general average. So a couple things is on my mind. I'm like, okay, one, people really like this content. Two, I have more content to view, so I believe this will compound over time. So as long as I keep posting, as I imagine is the truth for how I built my YouTube in the first place, and how I built my Instagram and any other following, I just was consistent. If I just maintain this for a year, I'm sure I'll get upwards of 100,000 plus subscribers. And if I just maintain this authentic approach, then I don't have to do anything different. And I can be myself, and I can just, essentially put out content for folks to watch, and it will essentially supply my growth. And I don't need to do shit differently, and it'll be of great value to many folks. And that sounds like a win-win to me, And so that's my current hypothesis. And for those of you who are really happy about this type of stuff I've been putting out there, all I ask is just to support me in any meaningful ways, other than just some of the easiest stuff like subscribing, liking, all that stuff. Help it out. But also, I have my tutorials, my mentorships. Feel free to purchase those, because I think, to me, I'd rather kind of use that as my main source of kind of monetization via YouTube. Because what I don't want to do is, if I ever have something controversial to say, because there's always going to be a moment in our community where we might need voices that can say something that might not be on brand. And I do imagine that will be a case at some point in the future. I just don't want to ever be hemorrhaged because of that, And so Feel free to, yeah, support me however makes sense for you. And again, I appreciate you guys' time. Hope this was really insightful. Hope you guys enjoyed the demo. Let me zoom in a little bit more. If you want to see this piece, I'll be posting it on Instagram later today. Anyway, cheers.